Hi, I'm Reverend Jake Zabel, and welcome to Children's Bible Stories. Alright children, our Bible story for today is going to be the story of Jesus reinstating Peter. So this story followed straight on from Jesus appearing to the 7 disciples on the Sea of Tiberias, where they did a miraculous catch of fish, and after they'd had breakfast, Jesus took Peter aside to go and talk to him. And while they were talking, Jesus said, "Peter, do you love me?" And Peter said, "Yes, Jesus, I love you. You know I love you." And Jesus says, "Feed my lambs." And then Jesus asked him a second time, "Peter, do you love me?" And Peter said, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." And Jesus says, "Tend my sheep." And then Jesus asked Peter a third time, "Peter, do you love me?" And Peter at this point was getting really grieved and upset. He's like, I've told Jesus twice now that I loved him. He says, "Yes, Jesus, you know that I love you." And then Jesus says, "Tend to my sheep." Now the reason Jesus had asked Peter 3 times whether he loved him, and Peter had to answer yes 3 times, is because this was meant to mirror what Peter had done when he denied Jesus on the night when Jesus was betrayed. When Jesus was arrested, Peter 3 times said that he didn't know who Jesus was. He denied Jesus 3 times. And so Jesus here was reversing that, getting Peter to confess that he did indeed believe and love Jesus 3 times. And after Jesus had done this, he said to him, "Truly, truly, I say to you, when you were young, you used to dress yourself and walk wherever you wanted. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands and another will dress you and carry you where you do not want to go." And the author, John, who wrote this gospel, then writes that this Jesus said to him to show Peter by what kind of death he was going to suffer. Now, the Bible doesn't record Peter's death, but according to church tradition, Peter was crucified upside down. So he was on a cross. And so this fulfilled what Jesus said to him when he said that he was going to be taken where he didn't want to go, and that people were going to make him stretch out his hands, because that's what happened when he was on the cross. And that another would dress him, because they would probably take his clothes away from him. And now as they were walking there by the beach, Peter turned and he saw the Apostle John standing by, and he says, "Lord, what about that disciple?" And Jesus said to him, "If he lives and never dies ever, what is that to you? You follow me." Now, John adds in his own gospel, because this was Jesus talking about John. John adds in the gospel that Jesus didn't say that John was going to live forever and never die. Jesus said to Peter, if John lived forever and never died, what does that matter to Peter? So what Jesus was doing here is that Peter was looking at John and he's like, "Well, Jesus, what about John over there? You know, what about him?" And Jesus says, don't worry about John. I've told you, Peter, to go and feed my sheep and to follow me. You worry about doing that. You go, you look after your sheep, you preach the gospel, you administer the sacraments, you look after the church, and you do that, and you worry about how you do that, and don't you worry about what John's doing. John has his own mission to take care of, you have your mission to take care of, and don't you worry about John. And that then brings us to the end of John's gospel. And that's also the end of our story for today, children. So I've been your host, Reverend Jake Zabel. Goodbye, and God bless.